Welcome, everyone. I'm Jan Holland, and today we're going to talk about self-care. And I'm delighted to welcome Princess R. Lakshman, who's going to share her insights about this. So welcome.
Hi, thank you, Jan. Thank you for including me in your beautiful program. I'm Princess R. Lakshman, and I'm joining you from Sydney, Australia.
I'm so delighted that you're with us. So I'm just going to read a little bit about your bio first. So Princess R. Lakshman is a degree qualified clinical nutritionist, writer, counselor, speaker, life coach, and group facilitator. She owns Mind Body Healing Hub, where she serves her Muslim community in particular and people from culturally and linguistically diverse communities in the space of physical, mental, and spiritual health. But I would also like to add that I heard Princess R. Lakshman on a radio interview, and she spoke with such eloquence and so much from the heart, and it so resonated with me that I had to invite her to come on this summit and share her insights with us.
Oh, thank you, Jan.
Not a problem. So thank you for being here. So Princess, I believe that you talk about the 5 pillars of self-care. So would you like to share those with us?
Yes, I like to call them oceans of self-care, and also 5 pillars of self-care. Reason I call them oceans because like ocean, you can have a storm, you can have cool, calm ocean and different sizes of waves every day. And sometimes there's, so much stillness, and sometimes it's just hurricane and stormy. And even, in some places you can have like frozen ocean water. So I like to call them that because with self-care, we're not just looking at going to a spa treatment or getting your nails done or going and buying clothes and nice shoes and bags, even though that is really lovely to do for yourself. And should be encouraged whenever possible. But I call the 5 pillars of self-care your physical health, your mental health, your emotional regulation, your financial health, and your spiritual health. So all of these 5, when you look after all of these 5 things on a daily basis, as a way of your daily practice, and not like chores, but something that is part of you, that you're living out, then you're centered and you're grounded and you have the right response to life. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's what the 5 pillars of self-care would be.
That's fantastic. And I love the fact that you mentioned all of those things, because sometimes I think we will neglect at least one.
Yeah.
I know for me, for a long, long time, it was actually the financial. I just
Yes.
didn't worry about that.
Same.
As I got older, and I thought, oh my goodness, I really need to think about this.
Yeah.
So it's good to have all of those things in practice each day.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound gender biased here, but I feel that this is a common thing among women, especially, and which is what makes it really hard when you do separate from a relationship where there's been joint financial decisions, and most of those times, culturally speaking, the joint financial decisions have always been dominated by the male in the family.
Yes.
Even while growing up, your father makes the decisions. And I'm purely speaking from a cultural perspective.
Yes.
I belong to the Indian culture, and I know growing up, a lot of those decisions are taken by the males in the family, your financial investments. So as a woman who suddenly has to leave a relationship that's not working, for whatever reason it may be, not always violence, but even, mental compatibility might not be there. So when you do decide to leave that relationship, the woman may find herself ill-equipped with financial literacy to make the right choices for herself. I certainly went through that in my own life.
Yes, I know that's true. And I know that many women, even not from an Indian background, but from just the Aussie background, what we term, the old Caucasian Aussie.
Yeah.
But I know it's our society is very different today. But I just find that we allowed, or we did give that power to our partners, and they looked after everything. And sometimes we didn't have a clue what was happening, but much to our detriment in the end. So I think that's really important. So thank you. So why is self-care important?
Well, for someone who coordinates and facilitates and designs workshops specifically about self-care, I always say to my clients and my audience that when you actually study the term self-care, it has the emphasis on self. But to be really honest, you are part of a collective, right? In this world, we can't just be alone. We have to be part of a society, be part of a family, be part of a work environment. So the self doesn't exist independently. Well, it does, but I guess you know what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah, I do.
we function collectively and in response to other catalysts in our lives. So it's really important. I'm sorry, I just had this little ting that has reminded me that I must put my phone on silent, and I do apologize. I'll do it right now.
No, I'm thinking I
Instead.
must do that for mine as
Um,
well.
just so we don't get interrupted again with little tings and bings. Yeah, so self-care is something that is part of your daily practice, where when you neglect yourself, you're actually neglecting your contribution to your collective existence.
Yes.
And that can actually have a ripple effect throughout the planet. It sounds quite far-fetched, but how we vibrate, how we look after our own selves will have an impact on the entire planet. And if we neglect to look after ourselves, we're neglecting the health of the planet.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Thank you. And so what are some common symptoms that emerge when self-care is neglected?
And that's great. I'm glad that we're covering this, because I'm actually answering this from a very personal perspective here. And I also have observed this with my own clients and with people who attend the workshops, where they've shared the common symptoms would be most often anxiety. Most often it's anxiety, and anxiety based on future outcomes that you feel you have no control over, and the inability to surrender, to the unknown, to what's to come. So that ongoing anxiety when you're not looking after yourself, when you're not grounding or centering yourself and surrendering in the moment. Other symptoms may be sleeplessness, so or sometimes oversleeping. So you can be oversleeping, undersleeping, not sleeping at all. You can be eating the wrong foods and drinking the wrong beverages, therefore leading to other nutritional deficiencies in your health, in your physical health. Mental health is severely affected as well, anxiety being one of them, overthinking, or assuming things. There could be physical manifestations in your blood pathology. There could be physical manifestations of the dis-ease of the body, leading to disease. Other physical manifestations could be feeling unfulfilled in your relationships or in your work environment. Perhaps spiritual disconnection as well, where you are left feeling really alone and isolated in your mind because you cannot understand why you're here, or there's confusion about your purpose here in the world. So lots of different manifestations that happen in all of these 5 areas. So even financially, there could be a manifestation when you don't look after yourself, where you're overspending or underspending, not knowing the purpose behind the money that you may be earning, not knowing that it's just a tool, it's not your whole life. So stressing about that, all of these different facets, the 5 pillars will get affected when you're not taking care of yourself.
Yes, thank you. What I find is anxiety is a big one, because when you're going through a divorce and you're having to make really big decisions, anxiety diminishes your ability to think clearly. So it's so important to care for yourself and to be aware of what is happening so that you can actually make good decisions for your future life.
Absolutely. And it plays on the mind. It plays on the mind in terms of, really debilitating you to think badly of yourself. Maybe
Yes.
you've made certain choices in the past where you've chosen the wrong person, and assumed that that person would be your rock and would be your lifelong partner. But when things don't work out, there is always these four things that we go through, blame, fault, guilt, and shame.
Yes.
The four common things, and it really plays on your mind and affects your future moves unless you learn to completely surrender and acknowledge these feelings, which is why emotional health as one of the 5 pillars of self-care is very important. How to regulate those emotions.
Yes, thank you. And what I realized also with anxiety is that your mind does spin and you don't take the time sometimes to connect inwards. But with anxiety, they say you have to feel it to heal it. So feel those feelings and know what's going on.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. You have to feel it to heal it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. So why is there a connection between self-talk, self-worth, self-confidence, and self-care?
Well, self-talk is something that we say to ourselves about ourselves.
Yes.
Self-confidence is how you believe that self-talk, and then you go out and find your place in the world and find your connection with your own skills, your gifts, and your talents, and have that voice that you can then use, whether it's in the voice of your writing or speaking, or making a video, or making or taking a photograph of yourself. Are you filtering, or are you being authentic?
Yes.
That's your self-confidence speaking right there. And what was the other thing? So self-talk, self-confidence,
Self-worth. And
self-worth. Yeah, all of these things. Yes. So all of these things actually get affected when we don't look after ourselves, which is why there's a direct link between a daily practice of your self-care and the way that you talk to yourself about yourself.
Yes.
Very important. The kindness with which you care for yourself holistically will manifest in the way that you talk to yourself about yourself. It's really easy for us to have an opinion on other people, but how is your opinion about yourself that you're telling yourself? And how much of it are you believing? And how much of it is an imposition of somebody else's opinion that you're believing to be your own? Are you stopping to check whether what you're thinking about yourself is even something that is authentic to you? Like, for instance, for me personally, growing up thinking, and even in my marriage in the past, thinking I'm fat, I'm ugly, therefore I'm unlovable. Things like that, the repetitive self-talk that is really debilitating all other areas of your life. So a huge connection between your daily practice of self-care, because when you don't look after yourself, you're constantly putting yourself down. You're constantly undervaluing your gifts that God has given you. That, if you're not a religious person, I'm using the term God, but you could be using any other term to give that attribute to the higher power. But I would say God, because I'm religious in my daily practice, and I feel that when you don't look after yourself, you're neglecting, you're not acknowledging the innate gifts that you have been blessed with to serve the world, to serve others, and you're constantly putting yourself down, you're doubting yourself, you're then having a filter about your own worth, about your own self. And unfortunately, you then impose that on other people around you. So in terms of, coming out of a relationship and then wanting to trust another man or another woman, to let them in your life, there's that self-sabotaging cycle that starts because you talk so badly about yourself to yourself. You impose that on another, and
Yes.
you're unable to let someone else in your heart again. You know, all of these things matter.
Yes, thank you. What amazes me is how intelligent, talented women constantly beat themselves up. And
Yeah,
it's just something that is very, very common. And
yeah.
so to learn not to beat yourself up and to talk kindly and to have self-compassion is so important.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And I have clients, I have been one of those women myself, where you have your qualifications, academically you're qualified, or maybe in your own job, you may have a really good job or a title in that job, or you may be well known in the community, or none of these things. But you know, sometimes um, you can take away from all your achievements and just look at yourself such a dirty, through a dirty filter, where something that some other person said to you during the abuse or during the put downs, it hits your core as though it is truth, but
Yes,
it's not your truth. Maybe it's the truth of that some other abusive person perceiving you due to their own unhealed trauma, their own unhealed pain. Why must you adopt that as your truth?
yes,
That's where self-care is important, to challenge that belief system and say, this is not my truth. Just because someone says I'm fat,
mhm,
I'm ugly, um, that's not my truth. That's that person's twisted perception of the world. Maybe they're going through their own kind of venomous experiences, you know, and
yeah.
they're trying to impose that pain on you. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, what are the 3 daily must-do self-care rituals?
You know, I always feel that there is a lot of talk about having the attitude of gratitude.
Yes,
I feel that the only time I really began to heal from my own separation, my own divorce, was the practice of gratitude. Not so much the attitude. You may have the attitude of gratitude and say, yeah, we must all be thankful for what we have. That's a great attitude. But how often are you actually practicing that in
yes,
every single moment in your life, even when that moment is something that you didn't plan for, or something that feels uncomfortable for you, or there is an interaction that's happened that's not comfortable? How often are we actually pausing and practicing gratitude for something that didn't go right, for something that failed us? Because the practice of gratitude of that moment would be to practice gratefulness for the realization of that negative experience, for the realization that I am not that experience. I am that force that overcomes that experience. So, that practice of gratitude is more needed than the actual attitude of gratitude. You know,
yes,
of course, the attitude of gratitude is a baseline foundation, but
yes,
then to consciously practice the act, the deed of that gratitude in every moment in your life is a great practice of self-care on a daily basis, finding the good, the greater good in what is happening to you and what you're doing with yourself and with others. So that's number one. Number two would be to spend time in nature, and acknowledge that you are not separate from nature,
mhm,
that we are all nature.
yes,
We're just human beings existing naturally with our other natural beings, you
yes,
know, flora, fauna, whatever. But
yes,
we are not apart from nature. We are nature. So, really grounding, finding your center every single day. If you're a corporate worker, you know, find time to take your shoes off, go outside, find a patch of grass, plant yourself like a tree, and unburden, and just breathe in. If you're a homemaker, you know, finding time to just breathe and be in silence within nature to really ground yourself. So number one was the practice of gratitude. Number two is finding your center and your grounding and acknowledging that you are nature. You are a natural being existing within all of nature. So that's number two. And number three um, would be to have a short, very short mindfulness practice every day. And people ask me, how do I do that? How do I practice it? There are many ways that one can practice mindfulness. It could be while you're washing dishes to be really present. It could be while you're taking your first morsel of food or enjoying that first sip of your beverage. You know, the mindfulness would engage all your senses to really bring you in that present moment. I personally practice my mindfulness in the shower. I love to just surrender to the falling, drops of water on me. And then I turn the shower off and I inhale the beautiful aroma of the soap or the liquid soap, and I put it on my body and I give thanks for this physical vessel that I dwell in. And then I scrub my body clean, and then I turn the shower back on. And in that moment, I feel the cleansing of the day's worries and just letting go of all that has worried me or made me anxious or made me feel sad a little, or maybe not, or even joy of whatever has come, because the highs and lows of life, right? Like really surrendering and thanking. So I find my mindfulness moments in the shower, and it also gives me great ideas for whatever next I have to write about, whether it's a poem or designing a workshop, whatever it would be. The great ideas come for me in the shower, and it's always in that practice of mindfulness that we're truly authentic, truly living from the core. No one's there to watch you, no one's there to criticize you, and you letting yourself really be you. So three great things that don't cost you a single cent: the practice of gratitude on a daily basis, the practice of being in nature and knowing that you are nature and grounding and earthing yourself, and thirdly, a short practice of mindfulness.
Oh, I so love that. And what I'm hearing also is that sometimes we think of mindfulness as a chore or a task, but you made it sound so pleasant.
Oh,
So I think
thank you.
we can all do that. We can find something really pleasant where we can engage every part of us, and
Yeah,
but it's still a mindfulness practice.
yeah.
So that's great. And I just wanted to acknowledge gratitude as well, because that was the turning point for me. When I was going through my divorce, I felt I felt very sad and sorry for myself, the truth be known. And one day I woke up and I thought, I'm in a warm bed. I've got a roof over my head. I've got more food in the fridge than I need. And I thought of all the people in the world, in refugee camps who didn't have running water, who, didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And I thought really, and then I thought I was blessed for a start. But then I thought of all the good things in my life.
Yes.
I still have wonderful friends and family. And so just waking up and thinking of what I can be, I wasn't even consciously thinking of it as gratitude, but I just thought I'm really lucky because I have these things now. And then I started to think of more of the things that
Yeah.
I was grateful for.
Yes.
And that was the turning point for me. So, because it makes you get up each day and see all the good things rather than focusing on the bad, which, I
Yes.
was until that point in time. So
Yeah.
there were wonderful tips, and I love nature. I just find even when I go for a walk, as soon as I open the door and walk out and I see plants and trees and so on, it just changes me straight
Mm,
away. It
mm.
changes
It's immediate.
the way I feel. Yes. And then the last thing, we talked about mindfulness, that it can actually be very pleasant. It doesn't have to to be a chore at all. So Princess Lakshman, thank you so much for this. It was certainly inspiring to me, and I'm sure it will be to our audience. And so how can people find out more about you?
Well, they can visit me on Insta. I know a lot of people have Instagram accounts, and I have my Instagram page on Princess R. Lakshman is one of my handles. Another handle would be Mind Body Healing Hub. My website is also princesslakshman.com or mindbodyhealinghub.com.
Right.
I'm also quite active and public on Facebook. And if you basically, if you can't find me, you can just Google me, and there are a lot of Google entries that will come up if you put my full name, Princess R. Lakshman. It'll give you my LinkedIn page, my website, my Facebook, and also a lot of things that I've written and shared over the years. My latest one being a book of poems that I released a couple of years ago called The Soul Speaks.
Yes.
So that's available in bookstores and online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. Yeah, so that's all available. And if someone wants to WhatsApp me, my phone number is 04519777786. I believe if you're located overseas, you might have to do +61 and then 4519777786. I serve my Muslim community a lot because of the lack of counselors who have the Islamic perspective on things in the mainstream and cultural perspective as well, I guess. So I have a lot of clients who I interact with via WhatsApp, texting, and video calls during sessions. So I'm happy to receive a message from anyone who wishes to reach out and for me to be able to be of service to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll put some of those links on the page. So thank you once again. And thank you for agreeing to appear on this summit.
Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing. I would like to acknowledge that you're just amazing in what you're doing and helping out so many people. So thank you for initiating this sort of summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.